But another very important point in this whole discussion is the topic of racing room, and it must be afforded by both parties for each other. Now, of course, in terms of the B pillar, this whole situation of what is legal and what's not can vary depending on the type of corner in question. And in some cases, a clean or illegal pass lead can in actual fact require the overtaking driver to reach the A pillar, which is right there next to the windscreen. However, on a straight, such as what happened in Western Australia, where cars are side by side on the way to a corner, if there's any overlap between those two motor cars by even so much as 1 millimetre, then the lead car must provide racing room for the following car and not squeeze the other guy off the road. If the lead car is clear of the following car, then he's permitted within reason to move anywhere he likes. But if it's a defensive manoeuvre, he can only move once. You're not allowed to start zigzagging across the road. It is a complex topic, and that's the reason why those decisions are so controversial. It was a great question.
We thank all of you for your ideas for the Zinger Hot Topic. We encourage you to keep doing it. Keep sending them in. Simply go to rpmlive.tv and give us your Zinger Hot Topic. Let's do some housekeeping. There was plenty to talk about coming out of Perth.
Issues arising from round 3. Marcus Ambrose, as everybody's probably well aware now, judged to have behaved in an inappropriate way, conduct prejudicial, $15,000 removed from his wallet, 5,000 of that suspended if he behaves himself through to the end of the year. And in race 3, Greg Murphy, his crew exceeded the number that you can have work on the car during a pit stop. They whipped 6 points out of his tally, and we're on board there with Murph, who's a happier boy this weekend with a car that he feels is working a bit better. Car number 51, Super Cheap Auto Racing, welcoming the Quit organisation to their team this year. And that team running a new engine configuration by Perkins Motorsport in the Paul Wheel car. And here's the Talon Tough Tools starting grid with Craig Lowndes at the top of the pile from Mark Scape and Marcus Ambrose. And, you know, when you and I have been analysing this in the last day or so, Lee, this is a real all-star cast in the top 10.
It's probably the first time we've had all of the big guns firing at the top end of the field. Jason Bright feels pretty confident today that he's got the right car to do the job. And they had a significant test recently. They feel they got a lot out of it. Cameron McConville was possibly the only one, a bit of a disappointment after qualifying back in the 20, considering he made the top 10 at Barbagallo. Big issue today that everyone's talking about is tyre wear, and how does it work with a strategy? When do you change them?
Well, it depends on where you are in the field. The lead guys will invariably probably have to do whatever the first couple do, and they'll most likely get themselves into a position where they pit soon after the window opens. But if you're down the field, you might want to run the gamble and take your chances if a safety car comes out.
Just to expand on Darrell's scoop there, guys, the Stone Brothers team had a new starter motor and a new battery on the grid. They did not need to change anything. They had a precautionary look at it. The message from Russell's engineer, Barry Hay, was, Russell, forget about these dramas. Get on with the race. The car's okay. All
right, we're moments away. This is round 4 of the V8 Supercar Championship Series. Couldn't ask for a better front row, could you? Lowndes v Scaife. And Scaife is all fired up.
And what about the form guide? Well, last time here, Marcus Ambrose, 3 from 3. Craig Lowndes with a 2nd and a 3rd last time. Remember, Scaife got together with Todd Kelly at the first corner. But now they're all up the sharp end.
Look at the revs rise. Hear the revs rise. The car's shape. We're ready to go. Can Lowndes convert his 3rd pole? He gets the jump. Scaife bogs it down. Here comes Ambrose. Richards splits him, and they squeeze him into turn 1. Lowndes leads the way, but here comes Stephen Richards.
Richo round the outside, and that's the hard way to do it. And Scaife's down the inside for turn 2, but a terrific start by Lowndes, who holds his pole advantage from Ambrose, who's up a spot. Then they scramble. That's Tander on the outside in the dirty stuff. One car's gone right off on the outside of turn 2. Lowndes, Ambrose, Scaife, Richards, Ingle.
Radicic trying to round them up. Seaton, he and his teammate Stephen Johnson have had a frustrating weekend. Murphy looking to try and come up the inside. Radicic tucked in behind Simon Wills, who's had a positive weekend.
Lowndes making a gap, exit of turn 5.
I'd be interested to see the start again, because I think Scaife may have got the jump, but then he bogged it down once it got going. And that enabled Craig Lowndes to disappear. Ambrose came firing up the inside.
Todd Kelly.
He's in a pretty tough battle at the moment with Greg Murphy. Bright's holding off Paul Morris on the inside. Stephen Ellery. Good forceful driving through turn 9, and Ellery's got him. Oh, he runs Morris out into the dirt.
It's one of the good passing opportunities on this track in the hairpin at turn 9. If you can catch somebody just offline, a little sneak down the inside, he did it. Coming up to complete lap number 1 of 36. Craig Lowndes is the leader. He skipped away nicely on this opening lap. Good margin, and as he crosses the line, the standing lap time is 38.5, and it's 0.7 of a second. Ambrose, then Scaife, Richards, Ingle, Tander, Todd Kelly, Murphy, Bright, Ellery. That's the top 10. Morris qualified 11th. He's still in 11th. We might have a look at that start again, Lee, and just see what happens. Scaife did get an initial good jump, but then, as you said, he got the real chug-a-lug after that. We'll get to that in a moment.
And settled into a rhythm now. Ambrose determined to win here again, just like he did last year. Sits second. It's a gap back 3 to 4. This is Simon Wills in trouble.
Got some damage on the back of that car there. I think that's on the exit of turn 1. He's out in the gravel trap.
The Boomerang Commodore stuck.
Yeah, there he is. Absolutely beached, and it looks like damage on the left rear of that car. Substantial damage.
We are likely to see a full course yellow here.
The car on TV. The safety car's coming out now. So
SC boards have been deployed.
Do you know who hit you?
We've gone full course yellow. Can't quite pick up that radio conversation. The shot of the man on camera previously was that of Kieran Wills, Simon Wills' dad.
Guys, I'm in the Team Dynamic pit bunker. It was a little unclear, the message from Simon, but it did sound like there may have been contact with one of the Paul Morris cars, possibly even Paul himself, and this has been not a great start to the Eastern Creek race weekend. Max Wilson's car stalled on the grid as well. They've had some possible ring gear problems with that car, and they've also got a starter motor on standby for it. Max had to pit on the initial lap, so tough opening.
I'll tell you what is interesting, we're under full course yellow, and the field have roared through, and Marcus Ambrose has done a 32.9 on that lap, so the boys haven't exactly backed off a lot.
Seeing a replay of the start, and that was Craig Lowndes. The view from the back, what a start Ambrose and Stephen Richards got. But Scaife positioned himself well, didn't he, on the inside to fight back with Richards.
Yeah, it was another one of those starts for Mark Scaife, wasn't it? He's had a few of them this year. Here's another angle of the start, and Ambrose and Scaife side by side. Marcus gets up. There's just a tiny little brush between the two of them on the way to 1. Stephen Richards trying to make the most of it on the outside, but it's diminishing returns out there. Scaife held his position down the inside when they did get to turn 2.
Putting the pressure on Stephen Richards for 4th.
And Stephen left quite a fair gap between himself and Mark Scaife. He was getting monstered a little bit as they made the run to 1. And because of the safety car intervention now, the compulsory pit stop window will open at lap 9, the end of lap 9. Trouble here at turn 2.
Bright's in trouble. The Cat Ford, he lost about 3 positions. Now he gets going again. That was not handy stuff. So now he's left fighting. Ellery's been able to get by him. Look at Russell Ingle. He's under plenty of pressure too from Todd Kelly, Garth Tander. And Greg Murphy's in the mix. And his teammate Paul Wheel has caught up 3 positions in those opening laps. So handy work there. Bright's back up to pace now. Cat Ford just ahead of Jason Richards in the first of the Dodo Commodores.
Had some brake problems with this Cat car yesterday. Didn't qualify where he would like to have, and as a result of that, now in that kind of angry pack where things happen. Tander and Kelly get together down at 9. It upsets both cars and their rhythm changes, and more trouble here as Murphy comes up the inside now of Tander. A little touch between those two, and eventually Garth yields, because just end up totally mispositioned there between turns 10 and 11.
Well, Tander is simply relishing the opportunity to be at the front of the pack again. This is where he belongs. This is where he knows he should be. But it's been a frustrating year for the HSV dealer team driver.
Bit of
qualified in the top 10, and he's on it now. Sorry, Greg.
No, you're right. Bit of aggro, Lee, on the radio too. Todd Kelly saying that his steering is bent after contact with Garth Tander here. And at the moment, I'm down in the Team Dynamic pit bunker. They have plenty of race tape out on the car of Simon Wills. They are going to try and send this car back out into the race. And also next door at Team Kiwi, they are keeping a close eye on Paul Radisic's car and the damage to the front. The contact between Wills and Radisic. They are saying to Paul, let us know if there's any alarms or concern, but nothing at this stage of concern for Radisic. They're going to try and wait to fix it at the pit window. The biggest drama for these guys, of course, is with China, very limited window of opportunity to fix the cars, and for Team Kiwi, they're Queensland based. They can't even repair it back at their base. They'll have to do it here before sending the cars on Wednesday to Melbourne.
And
Tony Longhurst, who owns one of the franchises in that Team Dynamic operation, has first option on the second one, and there's some suggestion in the paddock at the moment that Kieran Wills may consider selling his second franchise. So behind the scenes, there's a bit of stress for those fellas as well. That's the front right-hand corner of the Paul Radisich Team Kiwi entry, and Lowndes not skipping away quite so much now as he was on cold tyres. Last time through, the margin was 0.3 of a second on board with Marcus. This will be a great pressure motor race between these top contenders.
Big difference this weekend. Right now with Lowndes, he's been on pole for the previous two events. He has not been able to convert that into a solid race result. At Pukekohe, he had the incident where these two got together, he and Marcus Ambrose, and at Perth, he couldn't do it either. But this is the first time we've seen Lowndes leading the race for this long and enjoying clear space up front.
It'll be interesting to see when we get some onboards occasionally from, say, Marcus looking at the back of Craig, just what the body language of that car looks like, because it's his ability to drive it straight that will determine whether or not he's got a race car that'll run the distance here. And that's always a telling corner at turn 3 here in the upshift from 3rd to 4th. If your car will hold a line and a set through there without jumping sideways, Craig using a lot of exit space there at 4, then you know your chassis balance is not too bad and you can look after the tyres, and that's critical for a result at this track.
Greg Murphy, obviously yesterday had clutch problems with that car. It was a slave cylinder. Overnight they put a whole new clutch system in it. Looks strong now. He made good positions on that restart, but also on the radio during that safety car. He mentioned, he said, guys, what we've fixed in the front now has affected our power down, so it may hurt Murph as this race goes on.
One of the big winners in those opening couple of laps with everybody scrambling has been Stephen Ellery, who's come from 12th to 8th. Lowndes' teammate in the Team Better Electrical Ford. Richards and Ingle going at it here, but they're not quite up with the front guys, are they? There's a handy gap there.
32.8 fast lap for Lowndes. Last lap, 0.58 of a second margin, first to second. Campbell Little on the radio at the moment to Lowndes, just asking him to run nice and smooth. Got to keep the car really straight around this track. Now the compulsory pit stop window is open, depending on whether anybody feels as to whether they're being held up. Some may decide to come in. This is turn 2, Scaife. Great shot. You can see what the car condition is like. He had a little bit of oversteer on 2. That cost him some time in the shootout yesterday. He wasn't totally happy with the car at turns 2 and 9. The cars are on the rev limiter in 4th gear at 7,500 RPM on the run there to 4. Turn 5. Temptation's always to grab the throttle early there. 3rd to 4th. Back to 3rd here for turn 6, 7. Rattle the car over the ripple strip there. 4th gear around the back of turn 8, Corporate Hill.
Nothing like riding inside, is there?
Yeah, that's good.
Fantastic.
Starting to sweat up. 0.8 of a second between Lowndes and Ambrose.
Ingle with very much a championship head-on, he says, this year. He's 11 points behind his teammate Marcus Ambrose. He says this is the best position he's been in the V8 Supercar Championship series, and he is due in right now, and he comes in. He's the first of the top runners in. Compulsory pit stops for tyres only here at Eastern Creek.
There's the line. 40K's got to be engaged there, and it's moved back from the chicane. Trouble here. Somebody's actually run into the back. I think Brian actually nailed the back of the Ellery car, did he? Certainly had it all locked up. You can see the remnants of the blue smoke.
Russell Ingle has to make his way to the Stone Brothers box all the way at the end. He did hit him. Look at the damage on Bright's car. Ellery's been released. Good quick change.
These guys have got to do the manoeuvre into the fast lane there. There's the hat they must clear on the exit, so Ingle away.
Judging by the speed of those changes, of those stops, I don't think anyone put 4 on. No. He's all going for 2. So the Caltex Ford back out into the mix. Meanwhile, Craig Lowndes continues to lead. He's almost got a second on Marcus Ambrose.
Paul Forgey's given Marcus Ambrose the call on his pit. He can come in now if he wants. He'll judge his pace, decide whether he wants to make a subtle change to the chassis. Rick Kelly's also calling for changes on his car. Downhill approach. 40Ks must be engaged at that point.
You saw the damage to Jason Bright's car, that compression, that congestion on the way into pit lane. Marcus Ambrose has a much clearer run now. Greg Ritter coming into pit lane as well. I can tell you with Bright, it was a 7-second stop. They only changed rear tyres. I'm going to go and have a word to Phil Keat in a moment, his engineer, about the damage. Also, yesterday, Bright lost one of his tyres with that aggressive braking package Neil was talking about before. He flat spotted one of the allocated 10 tyres for the weekend.
Ambrose, rear tyres only. These guys are quick, they're slick, he's gone.
It was a great stop, wasn't it? Shaved
Nice
by
work.
that.
We got that change in as well, Mark.
And they've done the change. So whatever you requested with the roll centre at the rear of the car, they've done it. So he must have just been calling for a minor adjustment on the car.
That's a term that you use a lot. We hear a lot about roll centre. You want to just give a brief explanation for the folks at home?
Oh, it's a nightmare subject to get into, but it changes the geometry of the suspension at the rear of the car. If they lower the roll centre, the driver's generally looking for better traction, a little less turn in the car. Or if they lift the rear roll centre, they want the car to turn a little better and sacrifice a little bit of the drive. What we generally don't know is which way they go with these adjustments.
So the order now is Lowndes, Scaife, Murphy, Stephen Richards, Todd Kelly, Jason Richards, Paul Morris, Paul Whelan, Paul Radisich. That's the top 10. But we're in that phase right now where some have stopped, some haven't. This is Scaife. On the anchors hard to get down to that speed limit for pit lane.
Not too much throttle. Turn your CPS slide off, mate. Turn your CPS slide off. That's it.
And not too much throttle. It's usually somewhere at or about 15% or a little under that. If you squeeze too much throttle, you actually slow the car up under its 40Ks because they pop and bang and carry on.
This to me too, Eastern Creek seems like one of those agonisingly long pit lanes.
Oh, it's terrible. It took a while to release that right rear wheel nut, but the car out pretty cleanly and efficiently. The CPS light, the green light that you're seeing illuminated on the roll bar next to the A-pillar in the front of the car there has been switched off in accordance to the instructions. And here is the gap between Scaife and Ambrose. They'll go side by side with Scaife on cold tyres. This is a recipe for trouble. The two of them side by side here at 2. Great bit of motor racing. Ambrose on warm tyres. Scaife tries to take the advantage. And there's going to be trouble. He's going to turn him round. This will be a big brawl afterwards.
Oh my goodness, the two that clashed at Perth, they've done it again. We said that Eastern Creek's been a hotspot for V8 supercars in the past and it hasn't disappointed. And Scaife will be furious.
I want to hear him on the radio. Well,
the battle between these two teams, Neil, is just not on the racetrack. Russell Ingall's stop was 7 seconds. Marcus was 4.7. Scaife was nearly the same. So both these teams just as competitive in the pit stop, which put them back out on the track the same.
This has worked perfectly for Craig Lowndes. I've just walked into the 888 pit bunker, and the message prior to that incident between Marcus Ambrose and Mark Scaife from Campbell and Craig Lowndes was build a gap, go hard. We need you to build a gap here and try and cement this lead. I've also spoken to Phil Keat at FBR. He says they are watching the temperature gauges very closely on Jason Bright's car right now.
They'll need to because that damage looked pretty bad at the front. Here it is again, the Zinger replay, turn 2. Scaife down the inside. Remember, his tyres are cold. Marcus has done a lap on his. They're side by side on the exit. That angle doesn't really give us enough information to know what happens next. They go towards turn 3, contact. Scaife crossed up and sideways. You need to see it from above or the other side or from the onboards. This might tell more of the story. And this is the rearward shot. Now looking out the front of Marcus's car. Well, whoa.
You have to ask the question, did Scaife squeeze him?
Tough one, because here's another view. This is a little bit more interesting. No, The problem is that I can guarantee I'll upset 50% of the audience here one way or the other. I would have thought that if Marcus fanned the throttle for a moment, given that the other car had that much room on him, then there wouldn't have been contact, but it may not be the way that it's interpreted at race control. It's a tricky one because it is in a corner. It is in a corner. It was not in a straight line, so I don't think the overlap rule is going to apply. So that'll have everybody going back through their ops manuals and their driver briefing notes and their history of these incidents.
Great pit stop for Super Cheap Auto Racing's Greg Murphy, because he's been serviced and has popped back out on the track in front of Russell Ingall. Good work by those guys. Lowndes still leads the race, however. Stephen Richards is second, Todd Kelly is third, Jason Richards and Paul Wheel. When will the race leader pit? That's the question. He has an 11-second margin over Stephen Richards.
The shame about the contact between the two of them is it just would have been terrific to see Lowndes, Ambrose and Scaife just have a battle to the end of this motor race.
Well, after Bargwanna's service, getting back to the Scaife-Ambrose topic, it was hot when they got back into pit lane in Perth. Can you imagine what it's going to be like here at Eastern Creek? Here's your race leader in the better electrical Ford. And Lowndes is doing a wonderful job. Has he built enough of a buffer? You'd think so.
He's just sliding a little on exit as he peels off now for his compulsory stop, and he's made great use of fresh air.
Yeah.
Got her all crossed up under brakes here. Oh, stop it, Craig. Good boy. There's the line. 40K's engaged, and they just sacrificed the last 20 or 30 metres there. Just slide the car in and engage the electronic limiter.
In our Snickers pit stop competition in New Zealand, these guys were exceptionally slick. Let's see how we go here. Rear tyres for Craig Lowndes. He skated on the cement on the way in. That may have, just over 4 seconds. Great stop by the Triple A team. I've also been in and had another word to Campbell Little. I had heard some radio conversation that may have suggested Lowndes was concerned about the tyre wear on the rears of this car. Not a concern, the word of Campbell Little.
This is the guy who is effectively racing, and he's only just come across the start-finish line now. Lowndes will be popping out of pit exit now. Look at this, the drag race, and he knows that Marcus is coming. Ambrose sweeps around the outside.
Well, she's on now. And Craig just overshot ever so slightly into his pit bunker on the slippery concrete surface there, and it's concrete so that the jacks that are deployed to lift the cars don't pit what would be asphalt if you're looking at a surface alternative. The concrete's solid, but it's also slippery.
These guys are 10 and 11 in the order overall, but they are effectively at the front of this field. Can Lowndes respond? 20 laps to go here at Eastern Creek. It's been a fascinating start to round 4. We've had a little bit of everything already. But can this man in the better electrical Falcon run with the Pertec Ford? Behind these guys, Murphy, Ingall, Tander, Ellery. And up the front, Paul Wheel leads this race, but he is yet to pit. Just like Paul Dumbrell, Stephen Richards is currently in pit lane.
Lowndes having a look down there at the settings on the anti-roll bars. You can change the anti-roll control of the front and the rear of the car with those levers that are behind the gear lever. Richards has done his stop. So he's shortening up the segment on the second set of tyres.
There goes Russell Ingall. Murphy's there. He's going to pop back out in front of Garth Tander.
10 tyres allocated this weekend, 2.5 sets.
Tander runs right up on the back of Stephen Richards, switches to the inside. It's the wrong side for the next corner. Richards holds ground, but Garth Tander's up at full speed.
And it's a very uncomfortable feeling when you're trying to hustle a car on cold tyres. And Stephen knows that he's got Garth on full attack, so he just moves straight to the inside. That's the sort of move that I was talking about in the Zinger Hot Topic earlier on. He's perfectly entitled to do that, provided he doesn't move the other way again.
You do it once.
Yeah,
that's it.
And you must be clear of the car behind you when you're doing it.
Frustration here for Tander. And look who's looming in the background, Todd Kelly.
And Garth knows that while Stephen's a bit vulnerable, you know, he's got to do it early, because even now those tyres are beginning to normalise with their temperatures and pressures. Has a run, though, down at turn 9, but not quite close enough, and Stephen's a wake-up.
That's where he and Todd Kelly came together on the opening lap, or in the early laps, I should say. Now Kelly will have a shot back at Garth Tander in a little while. There's a couple of car lengths between those guys. Race leader Paul Wheel has pitted now. Paul Dumbrell inherits the race lead. But it's only the first 4 who have not pitted. Marcus Ambrose is 5th, and that'll change shortly.
David Bernard off. Remember, lost his qualifying times yesterday when he went past the scales for the compulsory weigh-in. Sets him up beautifully here, and Russell gives him tons of space. Absolutely determined to finish races and get points. So clearly, Russell knows that Stephen's got a little edge. He makes a wise decision and just lets him slide by. The way in which this championship's going to come to somebody at the end of it all is to be there at the end, and there are days where you don't have the car to do the job. Maybe Russell's decided for this race that right now he doesn't quite have the car.
Quite an interesting switch in the dynamic at Stone Brothers Racing, isn't it? Russell used to be the bad guy. I'm not saying Ambrose is a bad guy, but he's certainly in a fair bit of controversy at the moment. Darryl.
One thing that SBR are doing right, and they've done it last year and this season, that adjustment that Neil mentioned earlier, the roll centre adjustment, and Marcus obviously a better set of rear tyres. They've got that onto the car. They've found the sweet spot. Also down pit lane between HRT and SBR. I've been to both teams, and no comment on that incident yet. It's still quiet.
Yeah, I'm sure that neither of the management crews want to get involved in it at this point. It's something they'll try and deal with after the race. Puts a lot of preload in everybody's minds, because they think to themselves, oh, here we go, we're going to have to go and try and sort this stuff out.
Well, with 14 laps left to run, the order is this man, Ambrose. Lowndes is second. Murphy's running well in third, but he's a long way back. Richards, Ingle, Kelly. Now, this is when, after Marcus Ambrose was serviced, there's an issue about where he exited the circuit.
Yeah, well, it didn't look to me to be any great problem here.
So Ambrose did it right. Lowndes, look, he gets crossed up there, doesn't he?
Yeah, they may actually look at that, but yeah, well, he was over the line, but I wouldn't have thought that was any great drama. Maybe it is.
Just being devil's advocate, is it a big deal?
I wouldn't have thought so, but...
Second place, Craig Lowndes. Good championship points for the Ford man. And Greg Murphy, who hasn't enjoyed a whole lot of success at Eastern Creek, is in a very strong position as well. These two still going at it. When we went to the break, and this is in fact Scaife now, in fact, not Todd Kelly, so it's the sister HRT car. Mark Scaife making his way back up through the order, and that was a pass for 7th.
Jason Bright battling here. Remember, he's got a flat spot on a front tyre that's harming his progress. He's just drifting in the pack a bit at the moment. Whenever you see cars all bunched up like this, you can just be guaranteed that there'll be more than a bit of paint swapping going on. Obviously, they're getting away with the damage on the front of that car at the moment. It's not causing too much grief.
Back in 27th place after qualifying in the top 10. That's not the direction Jason Bright and his FPR Ford wanted to go. He and the Toll Commodore of Anthony Tratt. Oh, he gets squeezed a little there.
And Jason just gives him room down there at turn 7 in the end. He knows that he's in limp mode. This is the beginning of this lap, the previous lap, the Zinger replay, and well, it's cars every which way, and you can see offline how dirty it is. Oh, goodness me. So Jason moving to the right and catching Jason Richards. Or was it Jamie Whincup? Whatever. They're all battling away at the back there, and I'm sure none of them are thrilled about being back there at the moment. And they obviously never tell you too much about these things, but they've either made a substantial change in the brake package, or they've made some other geometry change in that car, and it's just manifesting itself in some sort of awkward braking problem there, because Jason was complaining of that yesterday, and he's complaining of it again today. And he's now got a flat spot on the front tyre. You know that if you've got to come in and deal with that, it just drops you to the back anyway. He's been discussing it with Phil Keed on the radio. There's the margin, 1-2.
And it's 2.2 seconds the last time by. Is it growing, or can this man reduce that margin in the closing laps? 12 to go here at Eastern Creek. The Super Cheap machine for Greg Murphy running strong. Will he have the Perkins Engineering package at Shanghai? We'll find out. So far, so good.
Craig Lowndes on the radio, and he's asking Campbell Little, where are we at? And they've confirmed his position and his relativity to Marcus, but he's complaining that he's got too much understeer in the car, and they'll adjust that, no doubt, between races in preparation for race 2. 2.7 seconds is the margin, first to second.
And just reminding you, if you've spent $30 or more at any Super Cheap Auto store and you've already entered the V8 Muscle Car Mania comp, here's your chance for bonus entries. There is the code, which is Monaro, and you simply have to SMS as many times as you like. Here in Australia, 1977 5151, and for our New Zealand viewers, SMS 8844, code word Monaro. Do it as many times as you like, and good luck. This week's winner will receive a classic HK model Monaro driven to Bathurst. A victory at Bathurst by Colin Bond in '69, and I've seen that car. It is terrific. So good luck. Get involved. The Super Cheap Auto Muscle Car Mania competition. And you'd have to say at this stage, round 4, it's fair at this stage to make the evaluation that the move for Greg Murphy to a new team, the Super Cheap, has been a good one, successful one.
Yep. Excellent move, and the team continuing to improve these cars. Now some trouble here at turn 9, and Max Wilson going around there, not quite sure why. Did he do it on his own, or was he helped? Fastest man of the leading game at the moment is actually Stephen Richards. The last lap he'd actually did 34 even, and those around him are starting to drift into the high 34s. This is Paul Dumbrell in 11th place at the moment, having a battle with Paul Wheel, and it's a serious old battle. The two of them nose to tail there, turn 9.
And Paul Morris not too far behind either. And just before we went to that last thing, a replay, I saw Stephen Richards really closing the gap on Greg Murphy. That battle will evolve shortly, so Murph's 3rd place is in danger.
Yeah, because Richards has got a real turn of pace at the moment. Fastest lap of the race has been recorded by Craig Lowndes back on lap 8 at 32.8.
And his engineer, Neil, Campbell Little, has been back on the phone to Craig since you heard the last communique. He's been telling Craig ways to try and change the car in an onboard sense to help alleviate as much as possible that understeer problem, crucially as the fuel load is going down. He's also asked Craig to wind on a bit more front bias on that car. It prompted me to look at the track temperatures as well, because as you often say, Neil, this circuit has quite a unique personality. The bitumen is very UV and temperature sensitive. At the beginning of the race, the track temperature was 25 degrees. It's gone up to 27.
Therefore, people will be complaining about grip levels going away, and as you get towards the peak of the day here, it does get pretty hard to deal with. Larry Perkins watching on with interest this battle involving Paul Dumbrell, Paul Wheel, Paul Morris, 11, 12 and 13, and his other key man, Stephen Richards, is in 4th and closing down quite substantially the gap to Greg Murphy. Took half a second out of him on the last lap.
Riding with Stephen now. Richards versus Murphy.
When you're talking about, before Greg, them making bias changes, we're talking about the brake bias on the cars there, where you can alter the percentage of brake front versus rear. Again, Stephen Richards is super strong on the exit of turn 1 here. You can see, look at this, he's got a huge run on, and he does it with relative ease down the inside. Carbon copy of the move on Ingle, but this time Greg's arguing about it on the exit, and he's ideally positioned for 3.
Good driving, Greg Murphy. Good driving from both of them. Side by side, good, clean, hard racing.
Smart bit of work there on the part of both of them. Greg knew that Stephen would run a little slow on the exit because he had to run the shallow line.
Neil, it's interesting here because Murphy's still, as we mentioned earlier, on the 18-degree engine in this car, but soon to run the same engine that's following him. How much of a difference do you think it's going to make to Murph when they get that new engine?
They're saying that their comparative speeds from the Paul Wheel to the Greg Murphy car is such that it indicates that it'd be good to get the new engine in as soon as possible, and they're actually hoping to do that by China. So they're hoping to be able to insert that next week. They've already done a pre-fit to make sure that it can all work according to the plan, because there's a lot of little system changes between the Holden Motorsport engine and the Perkins Motorsport engine.
It's an all Holden affair with two good mates, but on track they are fierce rivals, Murphy and Stephen Richards. And at the moment, Murphy is holding Stephen Richards at bay. We saw him earlier draw alongside. They had a great scrap through turns 2 and 3, but Murphy holding the upper hand. Daryl, what do you have for us?
The outcome at this stage between the Scaife-Ambrose incident is both cars have been told to go to Parc Ferme after the race, and I'm sure there's going to be both officials looking at the cars, and also I'd imagine so they can get footage out of those cars quite quickly to make decisions.
Ford Performance Racing's Jason Bright is languishing outside the top 30 at the moment, 31st position. And I just had a word to his engineer, Phil Keed, who tells me that the airbox is quite badly compromised on that car with the damage from the altercation on the run into pit lane. It means it's down on horsepower. He's also flat-spotted a tyre. Tough day at the office for Jason Bright.
Yeah, it's got both things going. He can't get it going, and then when he does, he can't stop it. No fun in any of that. This is a great battle between Richards and Murphy, and then alternatively at the other end of the circuit, the same colour cars, but a couple of different characters, Paul Wheel and Paul Dumbrell, and I think Race Control will have something to say about that one.
And sneaking in behind those guys, you see the first of the Team BOC cars, John Bow, who's made significant progress. He started the race in 18th, and he's now running 12th.
And
look at this!
Fantastic battle between these two guys as they come through turn 3 together. Simultaneously, the word goes out on the radio from the race director that car 50 will be shown the black flag, Paul Wheel, for that incident at turn 9. Look at this. Richards runs wide into the grey here as he tries to find a way around Murphy, whose car is sliding a little bit more. You could see it on the previous lap at turn 4, slipping across the road. Richo's got a little bit of pace, but he doesn't have track position.
When there's some personal feelings involved, you cut the guy in front of you a little more slack. You won't see Stephen Richards take Greg Murphy out, but he's going to push him as hard as he possibly can.
They've been teammates, and they've been enemies, and they've been mates, and they've been enemies again. It's the normal ebb and flow in the paddock. Right now, they're not worrying about any of that stuff. They're just having a serious motor race, trying to find advantage over the other. And
with their scrapping, that's allowed Russell Ingall to catch up. Look at this. Ingall is now in the picture. Todd Kelly is, in fact, Kelly is still running with him, and Scaife not too far behind either. Closing laps, though. We've only got 3 to go.
Nearly 4 seconds is the margin. Ambrose to Lowndes, incidentally. There's Scaife. He's worked his way to 7th, and he is closing at a rate of about 2/10 of a lap on his teammate Todd Kelly. Probably won't get there.
You have to ask the question, though, what could it have been like, you know, if that incident had not occurred? On board with Stephen Richards.
Well, he's still doing a 34.9 this lap, Mark Scaife. Murphy and Richards, for example, 35.7, but they are engrossed in this fantastic battle exiting turn 2.
Murphy had a big handful of it then. It was fully crossed up the Super Chief Commodore, and Stephen Richards pounced, but he couldn't quite get close enough.
Paul Wheel is serving his drive-through penalty in the Super Cheap Auto car. Richards down the inside at 5, and he makes it stick.
Well, he knew that Greg Murphy was in trouble. That was his opportunity, made the most of it. He now takes 3rd place. Russell Ingall's lining up for a shot. There is Paul Wheel serving that drive-through penalty. It was a savage, savage round at Perth for Greg Murphy when he was in such a strong position and didn't get the championship points. He dropped from a very high position back to 13th in the championship standings. He needs points here big time. And I would suggest he is in severe tyre trouble. Russell Ingall has closed that gap very quickly, and he's got 2 laps left to get by Greg Murphy.
It'll be a chassis balance issue for Greg. The car's just sliding around a little too much late in the race in the rear. You can see now that Stephen's clear. He's well clear.
And we look forward to our very first V8 Superstars of the year. Sydney is the first one, of course, here at Star City Showroom in Pyrmont. And there's still plenty of tickets available. You can get that number 132849. Love to see you there. We've got 8 very talented drivers on the show. Ingall on Murphy. That's where Murphy ran into trouble on the previous lap, wasn't it? Exposed himself. And Richards pounced.
You can just see by the body language in the 51 car how much he's got to move around the road as Jason Bright gives room for everybody. And Greg's car is definitely sliding beyond his liking. And Russell wants to repeat the move that he saw achieved very effectively by Stephen Richards, but didn't quite have the proximity coming off turn 4.
At the front of the pack, it's now 4.3 seconds. This man, Marcus Ambrose, has over Craig Lowndes. Ford 1 and 2. Holden's top man is Stephen Richards in third. Murphy, Ingle, Kelly, Scaife, Ellery, Tander, Jason Richards, the top 10. And Paul Morris in the Siramate Commodore running in a good 11th spot.
Lowndes has continued to try and soldier on, but he's just lost out at a rate of about a 10th or 2 a lap to Ambrose. A couple of times they've matched each other's speed. He has complained to Campbell about the balance of the car. Meanwhile, this little brawl continues between Murphy, Ingle, Kelly, and there's Mark Scaife in the background. Mark is just amazing here, isn't he? He's just got so much pace. That car looks so good. And Darryl pointed out before that that little subtle change to the rear suspension in the car in the pit stop was enough to really give him that extra little edge of speed, and he's just walked away.
Just updating you further down in the order, significant progress from Stephen Johnson. Started 23rd and runs 13th. The team were very disappointed with what occurred in qualifying. Both cars were very low down as Ingle closes on Murphy again. But Johnson, the lead driver in that West Point situation here at Eastern Creek, is sitting 13th. And you need to do that in the first race of any weekend, don't you? Get a good result to leapfrog in the next race or races.
His teammate Glenn Seaton was out wide down at turn 2 in the opening lap, so he's been battling back in 21st since then, trying to make a bit of ground. Here we go. The boys are still at it. Greg got very high and wide before at turn 2. It's not worth having an accident for, though, because there's 3 points different. There's the damage on the front right corner of Paul Radisish's car. Remember, that happened very early in proceedings. As a result, I believe, of the contact with Simon Wills.
Will we see Kelly have a go? Will we see Ingle have a go at Murphy? Closing lap and a half. Not even that. And Murphy has somewhat of a margin. They'll get the last lap indication this time round. Richards has cleared out. He's safe. Third's his. Final lap. Can Todd Kelly do anything?
34.8 for Marcus, 5.6 for Craig, 4.7 for Richards, 5.8 for Murphy, 5.9 Ingle, 5.9 for Kelly, 5.5 for Scaife. So still at this point in the race, Ambrose is a blur.
And he's brought it out to 5.7 seconds, the lead margin. But look at this. Ingle's not done with yet. Closing lap. It's all about valuable championship points. And the man there in the Caltex Ford sits second. Chasing his teammate down in the race for his very first V8 Supercar title. And Murphy's not going to make it easy on this last 3/4 of a lap.
Russell can't afford to wobble around too much because Todd's right there as this man lines up for the final sequence of gear changes.
He won both of them last year and he's off to the best possible start here at Eastern Creek again. The reigning champion gets his 3rd win of the year. Race 1 here at Eastern Creek.
So we're just going to take our car to Park Ferme, which is Garage 8, where we stopped after the shootout. Marcus will just pick you up there.
Fine work again. Lowndes picks up his equal best result of the year in 2nd. And the Castrol boys hanging on the fence for this man. Stephen Richards, good result. 3rd place, he'll stand on the podium for race 1. But can anyone catch Ambrose here today? That's going to be the question to be answered in race 2.
Well, in car pace, that's a big question, hard to answer. And you'd have to say, based on history, very difficult.
Yeah.
However, he and Mark Scaife will be under investigation for what happened down there at turns 2 and 3. And that could totally change the way they line up for the start of race 2.
So a Ford 1-2. Ambrose Lowndes and Stephen Richards for Holden in 3rd place. Both Stone Brothers Fords in the top 10, both 888 Fords in the top 10, so good team efforts there. Both Holden Racing Team Commodores in the top 10, so some solid team performances there. But although the race is finished, I'd say there's some excitement to come.